Hey, good. Welcome to my little corner of cyberspace on YouTube. My name is Will Jang, and I am a little introduction to myself. This is my author page on Amazon. So I'm the author of 25 popular Kindle books in English, Spanish, and French. And so I titles such as Natural Weight Loss and Diabetes Control, Guide to Natural Mental Health, My Autobiography of Schizophrenic Will, A Story of Madness, Story of Hope, Fun New York, and a whole bunch of other books. So you could say I've written a little bit, but to the point, this movie is about multiple chemical sensitivity and past, present, and future. A little movie to orient you and to maybe inform you. This movie is only for informational purposes, and any problems you might get from this is a disclaimer. I will take no responsibility. But all the information I have been able to gather, I basically think is very high quality. So who am I? William Jang. Let's go to ePrints and Library and Information Sciences. My first book was Internet Training of CUNY Librarians back in 1998. So you could say I was a very wired person, almost, I guess, like 20 years ago now. So in a court of law, I'm considered an expert because I have a master's, and so yeah, good stuff. So who else am I? I was a chief librarian with New York State Psychiatric Institution and Columbia Psychiatry for about 7 years. So over at PI and Columbia Psychiatry, which is the #1 research institution in the world for in terms of psychological sciences and psychiatric sciences. I was the chief patient librarian, and I worked with some very big people, such as former American Psychiatric Association president Dr. Jeffrey Lieberman was the big boss. I met the commissioner of mental health, Commissioner Hogan, at the time. I met the president of Brain and Behavior Foundation, that's Jeffrey Bornstein, Dr. Bornstein. And a whole bunch of other people. Jennifer Connelly, when she was studying for her film role in Virginia and stuff like that. So multiple chemical sensitivity. As a librarian, I feel that Wikipedia has gotten a bad rap. When you look at library science kind of articles, you understand that Wikipedia is actually one of the most, it's basically as good as Britannica in a lot of ways. So with that in mind, when I myself developed multiple chemical sensitivity, I went straight to Wikipedia, and I'm like, oh wait, I can't have this imaginary problem, because, for example, here, it says about multiple chemical sensitivity, right? Although the symptoms themselves are real and can be disabling, MCS, or multiple chemical sensitivity, is not recognized as an organic chemical-caused illness by the World Health Organization, the American Medical Association, or any of several other professional medical organizations. So when I read that, I'm like, well, there must be something else going on with me, because if Wikipedia said it, then it must be true. I learned later on that there were multiple PhDs that were working in the field of environmental illness, and who had tried to actually edit the multiple chemical sensitivity page, but it's being, I don't know, there's a troll there who is, or multiple trolls that are blocking these changes that would make multiple chemical sensitivity more believable. So right now it seems like it's not such a believable thing. A lot of doctors, most doctors, think that multiple chemical sensitivity is a spurious diagnosis, right? It's meaning it's fake. Quackwatch, right? So a quack being somebody who gives poor medicine or poor medical advice, or worse. So yeah, that's not helpful when you're dealing with an illness that basically the doctors in America are indoctrinated to understand that it's a psychological problem. So basically, if you have the problem multiple chemical sensitivity, plus your doctor doesn't believe you and makes your life actually worse, possibly by treatments or not, lack of treatments and lack of help, you really have a problem. So when you look at multiple chemical sensitivity in the case law, so there's a few cases right now that are in the legal literature. For example, Bradley versus Brown. This case is interesting in that it documents people that develop multiple chemical sensitivity because these employers negligently applied pesticides, right, at their place of employment, causing their injuries, respiratory, physiological problems, right? So it's weird that these people won the case, but they got like a token sum of money or whatever. So in reality, in general, multiple chemical sensitivity is not a problem that is supported by the law or by the medical community in the United States, which makes things difficult. One branch of medicine that a lot of doctors actually look down upon is the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. It's really sad that they look down upon them, in my view, because let me show you what they say about MCS. So given the unfortunate reality of chemical sensitivity, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine offers the following. They recognize the reality of chemical sensitivity as a primarily physical, not psychological condition. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, these people, they understand what I'm going through. So yeah, I mean, they're godsend in the medical community. So environmental medicine, right? So they also deal with things such as Gulf War illness. So what's Gulf War illness? In the first Gulf War, even though it was very brief, the first combat back in 92, under the first Bush president, a lot of vets came home. So they came home, these big burly men who had survived war and like God knows what, and they're coming home and their fiancés, their wives, their girlfriends, they all get like really excited, and they get all gussied up with perfumes and stuff like that, and then they run to their men, and then the men run away because they can't deal with chemicals in the air very much anymore, like volatile organic chemicals. So yeah, so Gulf War illness is under the same aegis as multiple chemical sensitivity. Indeed, electro hypersensitivity is also under the same aegis. Chronic fatigue syndrome and I believe fibromyalgia are all under the same, like, kind of the same etiology. So one of the things you want to look at is the peroxynitrate, ONOOO. That's the thing that links, in theory, all these disorders physiologically, as best they can guess. And the thing is, multiple chemical there's nothing really physically wrong with people in their bodies, psychologically, but there is something going on with the limbic system. And what is the limbic system? So it's a part of the brain that deals with, like, the olfactory system is one of the oldest parts of the brain. It's the smelling part of the brain. So it becomes hypersensitive. People say there's like a kindling that happens, such as with epilepsy, things of that nature. And so there is a physical issue with MCS that exists. So how did my own quest with MCS happen, and why? But what happened? So my My doctor mixed Abilify and Wellbutrin, and it's a bad combination. There's a major drug contraindication between bupropion, which is named Wellbutrin, and aripiprazole, brand name Abilify. It can cause seizures, stuff like that. Yeah, I mentioned seizures. And I have this little article on my website saying Abilify and Wellbutrin are a bad combination. In my case, for sure. So now if you look at Wellbutrin by itself, this is Daily Med, part of the National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health in the U.S. government website section. It used to be known as a physician's desk reference, Daily Med, right? So when you look up a Wellbutrin, right, this is Wellbutrin, bupropion, and we look at adverse reactions. One of the newest adverse reactions that they've added is called hypersensitivity reactions. So they don't include multiple chemical sensitivity strictly in this, hypersensitivity reaction, but multiple chemical sensitivity is a type of hypersensitivity. So once again, I'm Will Jang, author of many books, whatever. So in popular culture, we talk about, so there's Better Call Saul, which has a character that has electromagnetic illness. And so he's not the main character, but he's one of the recurring roles. So Chuck, or Charles, is the guy in the show that is suffering from electromagnetic illness. And I did post about this on Reddit, and people absolutely hated to think that electro hypersensitivity was a real disorder. I got flamed like crazy. So this is this huge flame war that happened. And, but on the positive side, I did get contacted by one person who, realized that actually Wi-Fi caused symptoms for this lady of depression, stuff like that. Around when she doesn't have Wi-Fi or that wave in the air, she feels better. So I was very happy to inform that one person, and that made it all worth it. So MCS, right? So let's get to the history of this disorder, because every medical condition has a history, right? So we get to the history. So it was first proposed as a distinct disease by Theron Randolph in 1950. So basically, it's been around for a little over 50 years. And like I said, it dovetails with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and Gulf War. They're missing electro hypersensitivity. But yeah, so it hasn't been around for a long time. And the first movie in popular culture that deals with multiple chemical sensitivity is Safe. I believe it was in 1995. And so the plot summary, 1995. So it's been described as a horror movie of the soul, which deals with a woman with a strong, who deals with multiple chemical sensitivity, and it totally changes her life. The allergist, she finds an allergic reaction to milk. She's a psychiatrist, but does nothing to make her nervous. I mean, back in 1995, there weren't very many doctors that believed in multiple chemical sensitivity at all. Even today, in 2016, in America, there are not many doctors that believe in multiple chemical sensitivity at all. One of the reasons is, for example, I went to a medical bookstore and looked up a book on allergy and immunology. I looked up multiple chemical sensitivity, and in the textbook, there was no equivocation. It said that it is a psychological condition where people band together online and stuff like that, and it doesn't really exist. It's all in their heads. So that's kind of sad that doctors are being brainwashed. So why is the American Medical Association missing the diagnosis of multiple chemical sensitivity? So the evidence. So America does not, and the American Medical Association does not accept MCS as a real physiological disease. But it turns out that Australia, Germany, Austria, Japan, Switzerland, Denmark, Spain, and Canada all recognize multiple chemical sensitivity as a bona fide medical condition that these people need help in terms of housing, in terms of health care, things of that nature. At the time of this article, there were 336 articles pertaining to MCS or chemical sensitivity on Medline. If it were a psychological condition that didn't exist, why do you think that they keep writing articles about multiple chemical sensitivity? So obviously it does exist. Otherwise, they wouldn't, keep writing articles about Puff the Magic Dragon and his whatever. I don't know what I'm saying there, but so for example, now when you look up multiple chemical sensitivity, there's been a jump from 336 to 804. So yeah, there's a lot more articles coming out, and that's in like about a year. I don't believe all these are about multiple chemical sensitivity. Oh, so for example, ammonia exposure. I hate ammonia. That stuff makes me choke so bad. But yeah, so 804 articles currently about multiple chemical sensitivity in PubMed or Medline. Let's be clear, Medline is the source, the most respected source of medical information in even American medical circles. So, if multiple chemical sensitivity papers are showing up here, they are to be respected, only because of the curation process. So yeah, this is a map of a lot of people around the world who have chemical sensitivity. So let's look here. Check out who's got chemical sensitivity here. And you can drill down, right, so in Spain, you have a few people with chemical sensitivity on this map. In France, you have a few people that seem to be mostly on the west coast of France, or the west side of France. A bunch of people in Germany, United Kingdom. These people over here, there are probably people with multiple chemical sensitivity in Eastern Europe and whatnot, but they're not quite informed, maybe. And then this is America. These are the people who have been affected with multiple chemical sensitivity that have self-identified that way. So yeah, we have a lot of people in California with MCS, as well as, pretty much everywhere, but mostly on the East and West Coast, it seems, right? And yeah, so that's diseasemaps.org. That shows a list of people if you want to reach out. Also Facebook, I have a Facebook group myself, MCS in New York. You're welcome to join if you want to find more information about MCS as it comes available. And so, for example, this one book that I would like to really recommend from the Chemical Sensitivity Foundation, where is it? Prescriptions for a Healthy House, a practical guide for architects, builders, and homeowners, 3rd edition. So that book is really helpful because it deals with things like LEED and like green buildings. Go back there, and it's real. I didn't write this book obviously, but it's very helpful when you're trying to renovate a house and trying to make it healthy for somebody with MCS or environmental issues. Then we have, all right, so yeah, the American Medical Association doesn't believe in MCS, doesn't think it's a real disorder, and that really keeps people with MCS behind the 8 ball in America. This is, but around the world, they're not as what's the word? They're not as combative with people with MCS. People with MCS need help. They don't need, lack of aid. So, for example, I speak a bunch of languages. One is French. So this is in Canada, hyposensitivité environnementale .com, right? So that's in Canada, like when the health depends on the environment, when the environment makes you sick. You need to understand, you need to heal. So this is a very good website in France, and it talks about perfumes and all that. It's no bueno. Speaking of no bueno, like this is, for example, when Spain recognized MCS or sensibilidad química múltiple in Spain, and so this is where I got the list in terms of a lot of the countries that recognize SQM or sensibilidad química múltiple, which is MCS in English, like Germany, Austria, Japan, Switzerland, and Denmark, right? And there's other countries now too, like Canada, whatever, and more. So in Spain, I mean, they're very, very pro protecting of people with MCS. There's even a town, I think, in southeast Spain. The laws are being changed in such a way that people with MCS are really being protected. So why does the American Medical Association not accept MCS as a diagnosis? It's probably part of their philosophy and medical paradigm, where it's called evidence-based medicine. So they don't really understand MCS, so they don't really have evidence that can support the disease. So they say, 100 years ago, they thought that a lot of things were psychological when they were actually physical. So hopefully the American Medical Association will evolve a little bit and get with the 21st century. So, so in Wikipedia, we have about 5 million articles in English, about 1 million articles in Spanish. So that means in English, I'm just going to do a little library science thing here. In English, there's about 5 times the amount of information in Spanish in the news, right? So that being said, if you do sensibilidad química múltiple, there are about, I'd say, right here, 100, right? About 100 articles up to this point in the year, about halfway through the year, about MCS. So there's about 200 articles a year published about MCS, right? So, but if you look at the news in English about multiple chemical sensitivity up to this point in the year, there are only about 10 articles. And this is my blog, mentalhealthbooks.net. And this is the little post about MCS news in English, which is pretty useful and pretty awesome, because it informs us and it actually shows that, yeah, like we, MCS exists in the English news too, right? So back to the numbers. So there's about 10 articles in English and about 100 articles in Spanish so far this year, right? So there are about 10 times as many articles about MCS in Spanish as in English, which is strange when there's 5 times as many news sources in English than in Spanish. So if you do the math, that means actually for every 20 every 20 articles in English, which is about how many are published per year, there should be about 1,000 articles in Spanish, right? For the same time period, if the amount of articles and amount of publishing were equal, right? So that's a huge amount more. So there's about 2% the coverage of MCS in the English news as there is in the Spanish news, which is really good on the Spanish speakers. Viva España, Viva Mexico, Viva America Latina. You know, thank you for taking care of your people better, you know, and I hope we'll catch up to you. So what can be done about MCS? Well, I mean, one of the most important things is to avoid chemical exposures. That's hard to do. So a lot of us have been called bubble people. And I've been personally homeless for 6 days with no sleep for 6 days. I almost died from that exposure. I mean, it was just really bad. Thank God I'm alive. But it's been a hard time. And nobody could really help me, you know, like in terms of housing. Or I do have some friends who put me up on the 7th day, and I survived that homeless time because I crashed. I slept 14 hours on the 7th day, and thank God for good friends. So for example, this guy, IQ Air's clean team, they don't mention Gulf War syndrome in this article about this Iraq war hero, but there's a reason they wanted to give him the best air possible. So IQ Air, I know for a fact, is quite a reputable company, and is quite it's like one of the leaders in the industry of air quality, right? But if you do get an air purifier, one of the things you have to watch out for, ironically enough, is the air purifier itself, because it's housed in a plastic container that can off gas. So I got mine used. It works great. It's very helpful. So another one is called Molecule. I'm not very familiar with this one, but it supposedly cleans the air on a molecular level. So that's good. And it's pretty inexpensive compared to other air purifiers. So I'd be curious if any of you guys did get the Molecule air purifier, how it worked out for you. So once again, the LEED, or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, is basically a new theory of architecture that makes healthy buildings, right? Green buildings. So people with MCS, they get sick from, for example, the off-gassing of paints, of formaldehyde from sheetrock, from the chemicals that are released from like welding of pipes, stuff like that. The polyurethane used on floors, pretty much everything almost can make us sick. So LEED, basically, they in this type of architecture, they minimize greenhouse gas emissions. They use less water. They also use the materials that do not off-gas much. And off-gas is a term that I like to use because a lot of homes that are older have off-gas. They are basically inert. But when something is new and it's still giving off chemicals, it can make somebody like me very sick. So, but the thing is, chemicals in the air are actually bad for everybody. So maybe people with MCS, in some sense, have a gift in that they avoid air that can make them sick long term. Why do I say that? So from the Journal of the Toxicological Society in 2015, I'll just read this for you. So the air freshener use could be one of the multiple sources that release volatile organic compounds, VOCs, into the indoor environment. The use of these products may be associated with an increase in the measured levels of terpenes such as xylene and other volatile air freshener components, including aldehydes and esters. Air fresheners are usually used indoors, and thus some compounds emitted from air fresheners may have potentially harmful health impacts, including sensory irritation, respiratory symptoms, and dysfunction of the lungs. The constituents of air fresheners can react with ozone to produce secondary pollutants such as formaldehyde, secondary organic aerosol, oxidative product, and ultrafine particles. These pollutants then adversely affect human health in many ways, such as damage to the central nervous system, alteration of hormone levels, and the ultrafine particles may induce severe adverse effects on organ systems, including the pulmonary, lungs, and the cardiovascular, or the heart and nerve system, the veins and arteries and stuff, systems. Although the indoor use of air fresheners is increasing, deleterious effects do not manifest for many years, making it difficult to identify air freshener-associated symptoms. In addition, risk assessment recognizes the association between air fresheners and adverse health effects, but the distinct causal relationship remains unclear. In this review, the emitted components of air fresheners, including benzene, phthalate, and limonene, were described. Moreover, they focused on the health effects of these chemicals and the secondary pollutants formed by the reaction with ozone. In conclusion, scientific guidelines on emission and exposure, as well as risk characterization of air fresheners, need to be established. So this is free full text, and it's a review article. So the difference between a review article and a regular article is that this kind of article takes into account like hundreds of articles about, for example, in this case, air fresheners and the effects on the health. And they're actually very good for an overview of problematic things that are caused. So yeah, and then so what can we do about MCS? So one of the things I like to do is the least invasive, safest kind of intervention. On this one website, Diet and Health, I saw this is very good information about chemical sensitivity, and like poor diet can, predispose one to it, obesity, age, disorders of kidney and liver function. Women get it more often than men. Unstable hormone status can be predisposed people. Environmental stress conditions, a whole bunch of things can like predispose somebody to MCS. But so it goes into like some of the things you can do nutritionally for MCS. So that's a good place to start. Then let me X out of this. Then there's also the Paul protocol for treating chronic fatigue syndrome and multiple chemical sensitivity. So Paul, okay, let me just go over this list a little bit. So one thing they recognize, nebulized reduced glutathione. So basically, like, it's hard to get nebulized glutathione, except there's a pharmacy out in California whose name escapes me at this moment. But they do sell the nebulized glutathione. But the thing is, you can easily get the glutathione levels in your brain and body increased by NAC or N-acetylcytosine and high quality whey protein, right? So that's an easier way to get glutathione, but this works for a lot of people, I guess. And then B12, all this great stuff. So this mix is called the Paul protocol, right? Who is Paul? I mean, Dr. Paul. He's a pretty amazing guy. So he's authored 64 papers on Medline, at least. So, I mean, he's probably, done maybe 100, 200 articles total. But to be included on Medline, he's a pretty serious researcher. So the Paul protocol is probably not a bad thing. It's probably a good thing to try, first step, to try to heal. And see, again, you see the NO hypothesis, which he came up with himself. And this, this group of nutraceuticals and stuff can be very helpful for that, maybe. So also, I wanted to mention that for me personally, the taurine has been very useful. I was at first very sensitive to the taurine. Now I'm less so, but my chemical sensitivity is definitely less exquisite, thank God. And I mostly say that's because of the taurine. But also NAC, I'm starting again, so that's about the glutathione. because the MCS in part it can be caused due to a reduced glutathione status in the brain and body. And what is glutathione? It's the master antioxidant in the brain and body. So if that's reduced, you just have a whole bunch of medical conditions that can creep up on you. And then there's Paul. Hi, Paul. Great guy. So what else can you do beyond like nutrition? There's something called Lda Therapy, which was created by Dr. Schrader over in Phoenix. So Lda Therapy basically, where are we? They do small injections into the skin of like toxicants, they're called, which is extremely small amounts of, like, for example, ammonia. So they inject this mix of toxicants into your skin, and there's something called, where is it? Beta gluconase, whatever. So that stuff activates the immune system in theory to heal itself. It's a really strict diet you have to follow when you do this this protocol, but some people get very much better. I tried 5 or 6 treatments. I did not get better. However, I do know people who have gotten better. And I think that it's worth trying if you are in a bad situation with MCS. So in search of an MCS cure. So I've gotten a little bit better from the nutraceuticals and whatnot. Did not get better from the low dose antigen theory stuff. So last year I had ECT, otherwise known as electroconvulsive therapy. So why did I get an ECT? I was a little depressed, and at the same time, I saw a case report of this is from Medline, of a 45-year-old man with a 5-year history of MCS, and he got a bunch of ECT treatments, and in this case, a substantial positive effect on symptom severity and social disability related to MCS was obtained by initial course of ECT and maintenance treatment. ECT should be considered an option in severe and socially disabled MCS. More studies are needed to evaluate if ECT can be recommended as a treatment for MCS. So, I was excited to try the ECT because of that. Helped one guy in Europe. And basically after I had the ECT, I got about 90% better in terms of the MCS. I was able to go into a gym that I couldn't go into before at all. It was just like very chemically, and I was able to work out for over half an hour. It was really like an amazing thing. However, very quickly, the beneficial effects wore off. So it's not a long-term treatment for MCS, the electroconvulsive therapy. And it could damage your brain a bit if you keep doing it. So you don't want to do that. However, there's a relatively new technology of brain stimulation. So ECT is a form of brain stimulation. And this one is called vagal nerve stimulation. In the past, vagal nerve stimulation was used for epilepsy, but they had to implant the vagal nerve stimulator and all that, and it was a really surgical procedure, difficult. So there are 3 transdermal vagal nerve stimulators right now. 2 of them are available in Europe, GammaCore and Nemos. And GammaCore is, I believe, available in the United Kingdom for headaches. Nemos is like Germany and some other countries for epilepsy. And there's a Net 1000 Aristim Medical. I just bought this. I'm excited to try it. So it's available all over the world. It's pretty steep, the cost, $650. But like I said, I'm going to try it. I'll keep you updated about if it works for me or not. I should know within the next few weeks. And so I believe because it's a limbic system disorder, right? So of the brain. So it makes sense that so basically when you do ECT, you don't know what's going on. You shock the brain, things get better, they get reset. Whether depression, refractory schizophrenia, depression from bipolar, whatever. So that's that. Yeah. Now, also, if you're a little bit anxious or depressed about the life with MCS at this point, I highly recommend my little guide to natural mental health, because it gives some very easy to do and, you know, positive things you can do for your health, such as like praying or meditating, or maybe fish oil can help with these things. And I'm not saying if you're depressed, only do these things in place of treatment. I'm saying this kind of book can be adjunctive, right? So basically, if you're really, really in a bad place, you probably need psychiatric help in terms of antidepressants or what have you. But this can definitely help long term, and it definitely will help your antidepressant medication or whatever work better, actually. So that's good. And everything in here is backed up by medical science. That's good. Again, my name is William Jiang, author of 25 books. Thank you for watching this video, and God bless. Health to you.